litRPGs are stories that take place within an RPG game. It's an emerging new genre of storytelling. Japanese TV shows like Sword Art Online is a good example of what the genre is about. References to the fact that it's all transpiring within an MMORPG game are rampant, including the characters' levels, hit points, monsters respawning, and etc. etc.
That was nice. But that boar's about as weak as slimes in other games are.
Holy crap, you gotta be kidding! I thought that thing was a mid-level boss!
Yeah, as if.
As per Wikipedia, litRPG stands for literary role-playing game, and it is a literary genre combining the conventions of computer RPGs with science fiction and fantasy novels. Sword Art Online is actually the most famous litRPG TV show, and that's why I'm kinda using it as an example of explaining the genre. Now, let's get to the crux of the issue. If it's just a game, why should you care what happens inside it? Well, there are numerous ways to address this problem, but this is how the show solves it.
I'm sure most of you have already noticed an item missing from your main menus, the logout button. Let me assure you, this is not a defect in the game. There is no longer any way to revive someone within the game. If your HP drops to 0, your avatar will be deleted from the system forever. And the NerveGear will simultaneously destroy your brain.
Yes, right at the first episode it introduces a permadeath state, and not just permadeath to the characters, but permadeath to the players themselves, and the players are trapped inside the game world. So suddenly the game is the only thing that matters, and what happens inside the game has serious consequences. Clearing the game becomes the only way out. Simple, yet brilliant. The game is being played with a VR helmet that disconnects your real-life body, that allows for full immersion. There is a name for that actually, it's called Full Dive VR, the same sort of stuff we see in movies like Matrix or Avatar, where your body is disconnected from real life and all your senses are being transported to the virtual reality you, or rather to your avatar. The litRPG book Ascend Online goes through the whole process, in fact, of describing how Full Dive VR is done, and even goes into the finer details of what it means to disconnect from your real-life body.
Ascend Online was pioneering full immersion virtual reality, FIVR technology, which, thanks to the recent advances in nanotechnology, we would be able to experience a video game directly, without having to rely on a screen, headset, or computer. All the information would be fed directly into our brain through the use of nanobots or nanites, while our physical bodies were placed into a sort of artificial hibernation. From our perspective, our new reality would be one of the game world.
But there are other ways to go about it other than Full Dive VR, such as Portal-style ways of getting into the game, or using high-end technology stuff like omnidirectional treadmills and haptic suits, kinda like the stuff we see in Ready Player One. There's obviously no one way to write litRPGs. In fact, when it comes to the definition of what counts as a litRPG, there is no clear consensus. Some are more in favor of the broader definition, while others want to restrict it to a certain list of must-haves. We're not gonna get into that. So litRPG books and audiobooks are abandoned, but movies and TV shows are kinda rare. Well, other than anime style. In fact, Sword Art Online opened the floodgates, and a lot of anime litRPG TV shows then became popular. Yet, there are hardly any non-anime or Western equivalents, although there are movies that coincide with some litRPG elements. Ready Player One is perhaps the most famous example. But perhaps even more so is the movie Jumanji. While it is certainly not a litRPG, players do play a character, and it does have reference to skills.
The characters we chose, we all have certain skills. So there's gotta be a way to access our...
Oh! What'd you just do?
Strengths: fearless, climbing, speed, boomerang, smoldering intensity.
The hell are you doing? Strength is my weakness. Hey, quick question. How is strength my weakness? Somebody explain that to me.
It even mentions the fact that the host is an NPC, so elements of litRPG's are creeping up on us.
I've been so anxious for your arrival.
What's with this guy? I think he's an NPC.
A what? English, please.
A non-player character. He's part of the game. So anything we ask him, he only has his programmed series of responses.
Got it. It's all clear now.
Gunto is a movie about being trapped in a horror video game. Kiss Me First is a TV show about a girl addicted to an MMORPG and constantly ping-pongs between real-life events and the game events. So, while these are not litRPGs, at least not by the more restricted definition, we do see a wider umbrella of RPG game-inspired stories on the big screen.
I've never been able to say this before, but I love you, son.
I know you do, Dad.
So litRPGs can be seen as a sort of like the next evolution of fantasy books. Obviously, hardcore fans of the traditional fantasy genre would disagree, and it's a matter of taste, but I consider it more enjoyable than traditional fantasy because I can relate to this stuff. I grew up with World of Warcraft and Neverwinter Nights and other multiplayer RPG games, and I enjoy the what if. What if it's possible in one fashion or another? And that's kind of what captivates me about litRPGs. litRPGs stand on the shoulders of giants. Traditional fantasy had happened first. litRPG is a literary extension of it. It was born out of necessity to explore MMO gaming culture. And there's a lot of stuff to explore, and anyone writing a litRPG is basically like creating your own fantasy MMO without all the coding and the technical stuff, so it can be a fun creative endeavor. litRPG is as diverse as the imagination of the storyteller. There is a market for it now because people are now growing up with video games. And specifically, RPG is a special type of genre, and even more so when it is online. It's different from all other genres in that you create a character and you fall in love with that character. You give it your all. It's not the same with a strategy game, for example, where everyone and everything is expendable to achieve victory. Not the same as puzzle games where you test your puzzle-solving skills. Not the same as FPS games where you try to kill and not get killed. RPGs are different because you get attached to a virtual avatar, to living in a fantasy world. There is something very disembodying about that.
Who are you?
I'm me. Who are you?
Son of a... You're a guy? You're not 17!
I, for one, truly believe in the potential of this genre to produce work that won't only be relatable to the fans of the genre, but to the general population of anyone who enjoys a good story. I hope it made it clear what the litRPG genre is.
I can do this! This world can't beat me! I will survive!